Feedback structure. The manager can choose to give a good constructive feedback once or several times a month. It can be very beneficial if the feedback complies with some simple principles. Recognize people's strengths to create a strong foundation, and next explore people's potential and build upon the strong foundation. This way the employee will increase competences and will not remain status quo. The feedback model can easily be misused to wrap up any frustration which the manager has, and the result will most probably be that the feedback has the opposite effect of development. The employee can simply stand still because of fear of doing the wrong thing. If the model is used for development, it gives a good structure. Feedback in 3 steps. What have I experienced that you do well? Find 3 areas of focus. And what have I experienced that you could work with to become even better? 2 focus areas. All in all, give a short positive statement. Here's a feedback frame that you will also find if you press the button Get Started on this topic. The purpose of the 3 steps are to build the foundation stronger by focusing on what the employee is doing well, focusing on the employee's strengths. To identify development opportunities that can help make the employee become even better. To summarize and conclude in a positive way and adding energy. 3.1. It is important to start by focusing on strengths. This is where the individual will build a strong foundation for the current competences. What is it specifically that he or she is doing well and should keep on doing? It should be elaborated on thoroughly to prevent the person in waiting for the word but and everything he or she cannot do or does not know. It is important for the person's self-confidence and self-esteem that the manager strengthens the employee's faith in him or herself. Most of what people are doing is actually good. If we can focus more on what we're doing well, it's much easier to extend our competence, and this applies both when we train on our preferences and what are not our preferences. Give a heading and explain in details what it is that person is doing well. Use examples and explain what it means for others. Find the 3 main areas of focus you want to highlight. If it is a general annual feedback, such as the personal development dialogue of the year, you may want to delve even further and relate to the success criteria in the job. It is important that the manager's feedback is based on what he or she sees, hears, comprehends, and experiences, and that the manager expresses what he or she experiences, what it means to the person and for others. 3.2. As a manager, this is the opportunity to do one out of 2 things. The first is to set directions if necessary, and the second is to develop. When the aim is to set direction, it is the manager who is the holder of the truth, if of course the manager's setting of direction is aligned with the company's strategy, objectives, values, and critical success factors for the team. When the aim is to develop, then the employee is the holder of the truth, since it is the employee who is the expert on him or herself and what is possible for him or her to do. This part of the feedback is only to be used for setting direction if the manager experiences that the employee is not living up to expectations set for the team. It is not beneficial if the manager is using it to control the employee's creativity when the employee is being creative and innovative in alignment with the team's and the company's mission. Therefore, it should only be in rare occasions that feedback is used for setting directions, since most of that happens in team meetings. However, it may be a good opportunity to set the direction again if the employee has not yet understood what matters. Before turning to the identified possible areas of development, it is important to have a good passage. Developing areas must be built on top of a strong foundation created through recognition and appreciation under point 1. After the feedback, the employee must have a clear sense of where he could develop, and he must want it too. That is why raw criticism does not generally work. The passage could be, and to become even better, I believe that you could benefit from. The leader cannot judge the employee, and therefore the words I believe is key. The observations made by the manager can be made available to the employee, but they do not necessarily become the truth. Only if the employee sees opportunities for development, it will happen. Again, it is beneficial to start with a heading and an explanation in detail through examples, informing what it is that the person can do to become even better. In addition to that comes the manager's perception of what the development will mean for the person and for others. The manager locates the two main areas of focus that he or she wants to highlight. Again, it is important that the manager's feedback is based on what he or she sees, hears, perceives, and experiences. Point 3. The feedback ends with a single sentence that sums up the general impression and in a positive spirit. This will ensure positive energy for the next period. The sentence can start with "all in all." Here's an example of a general feedback to an employee that sums up the impression covering a longer period of time. I see that you're very focused with what you're working on. I see that you do not let yourself be interrupted by mail, small talk, or noise in the office. Your effort makes you reach far more than is expected of you in relation to the requirements for members of the team. This means for the team and company that you are the one who in the peak periods are working the extra to meet customer demands. At the same time, you are very structured in your work. I see that you end of day plan what you have to do the next day and that you use that plan to get a high tempo from early morning. It means that you always deliver on time. This has meant that customers are praising you and our company. One of the reasons that the X company continues to be our customer is that they perceive us as a company that keeps our promise. Thanks to you. Thirdly, I see that you are striving to reach the short-term results. I have experienced that you are contacting many of our smaller customers to do business with them and that you are succeeding in closing the deals. This means that you are a major contributor to achieving the goals set for the team for each quarter. And to become even better, I experience that you can benefit from focusing on the long-term goals as well to achieve even greater results. Specifically, I can see that you can spend more time with major customers who buy more but where the decision period is longer because of the multiple decision makers in their organization. If you have regular contacts with several large customers at a time, your results will be even larger in the long run than what you have when focusing on the smaller customers. The smaller customers are usually only one-off buyers. I also see that you could increase social interaction with the others in the team. Take the opportunity to once in a while share your successes and listen to theirs. I believe that your colleagues will have more understanding for your values and vice versa, and that you can learn from each other. Thereby the possibilities increase for even better cooperation in relation to deliveries to customers, and it will mean even greater success for you. All in all, you're an employee whom I appreciate very much and who makes a big difference for our business. If we look at a monthly follow-up for an employee, then we must be less general and more specific in relation to the results the employee has achieved in the past month. Feedback is only a part of the monthly developmental meeting and is usually either at the beginning or in the end of the meeting. Feedback at a monthly developing meeting can be similar to the yearly development dialogue, but is based on what has happened in the past month. Here's an example. In the past month, I noticed that your ability to see the bigger picture has increased. This has given you some new ideas as to how we can solve the task in a different and more satisfactory way. I have noticed that you have made some new effective templates for how to hand over different tasks from one person to another in the team. This has meant that 2 of our colleagues now have an easier workflow because 3 work streams has now become 1. At the same time, your ability to speak in larger forums has given a really good result. Last week's meeting with our colleagues from the other department gave a lot of energy to both of our business units. It also looks like we have now acquired a better cooperation, minus the frustration we have had before. You have also accelerated the company's social interaction. Yesterday you volunteered to arrange a new annual get-together for all the employees. It will certainly mean a lot for collaboration across the units, and it is you personally and your initiative for the whole company that has to accept the credit for it. And to increase your value in the future, it will be essential that you spend more time on the task related to your success criteria than what you have done this month. For you to be able to accomplish what you have to do, it is necessary to transfer 25% of the time you spend on strategic work for the company on production. I believe you can do that by being present and 100% focused in the peak periods of the day, meaning early morning when we get the incoming orders and again right after lunch. This will mean that you will produce as much as the other members of the team. At the same time, I believe it can help you enormously if you structure your work so that you know every evening what you should start with the next day. One idea could be that you use the last quarter of your working hours to organize the next day. I believe that your work efficiency can be increased by at least 10%. It will mean that you, in addition to delivering what you are hired to do, still have time to get new visionary ideas for the benefit of both the business and your colleagues. All in all, you are a valued employee who this month has made an extraordinary effort to the benefit of all of us. Constructive consequence. There may be situations where the manager needs to give the employee feedback that describes that the job is in danger. It is still important to respect the good feedback rules and celebrate the employee for what he or she is doing well. Remember that it could be that the employee have come to the wrong job where the employee's passion, preferences and talents do not match with what the job requires. There may be other positions in the company or in another company where the match is much better, the way of working fits better, and where the employee will feel better. The manager must be clear when talking about what is required for the job. In general, we must believe that employees want to do their best and want to make a personal difference. It can be difficult if the fact is that there is no use for the employee's talents. However, it does not qualify the manager to judge the employee and state that the employee is impossible, difficult, annoying, or lazy. The manager's task is to assist the employee to progress into a new job where the employee can expect to be happier. This way, the manager will get the employees he or she deserves. If the manager has a habit of getting irritated by the employees, then he or she will get employees who are insecure. In general, insecure employees produce less. Feedback for a development area can be like this. I see that your results do not yet meet the requirements needed for the position you have now. It is necessary for you to manage that within the next 3 months. In order to cope with the requirements, it means that you have to increase your activities by 10%. I believe that you can do this by thinking further ahead and to book your calendar with customer visits 14 days before. This will give you enough customer visits to meet the requirements. If the manager then asks the question, "What do you think about it?" and listens to the answer, then there is basis for a good dialogue. Either the employee believes that he or she can succeed and has a suggestion for a plan which, with the manager's support, makes it happen. If not, the conversation will then focus on what the employee likes to work with. If there is a possibility that the employee may find a different position within the company, then it is fine. If not, then the alternative is to find a job in a different company where the employee will thrive. The fact that the employee is not performing and that the job is in danger does not mean that the manager should not give good feedback. The manager still needs to find 3 specific areas where the employee is good and 2 areas that the employee has to work with in order to be better, and conclude with an overall sentence. The all-in-all sentence for the employee in the example can be, "All in all, you are an employee with a lot of heart and a potential to solve your task in the future." It is understandable that a manager gets irritated when an employee repeatedly doesn't meet the requirements. In addition to the finger pointing to the employee, there are 4 other fingers pointing at the manager. If the manager has given good feedback and in good time, then he or she has given the employee positive clarity on where the employee is doing well, plus where the employee needs to improve. The manager has also given clarity regarding the consequences if the requirements are not met. The earlier that feedback is given, the easier it is for the employee to develop. Perhaps the manager will become wiser and understand why the employee is doing as he does. A manager is not always right in his or her assumptions. If the employee is not performing according to the requirements after the option is given, it is the manager's job to engage in a dialogue where the purpose is to help the employee in finding a workplace where his or her competences fit and where the employee will be happier. A place where the employee can be recognized even more for what he or she is good at. It makes it easier to fire an employee because it is the right thing to do for both parties. At the same time, it has been a part of the dialogue from the time it was discovered that the job and talent might not match. If the manager is experiencing a personal frustration and feels the need to get rid of it, it is a good idea to wait with the feedback until another day. In such cases, it requires longer preparation so that the manager can handle his or her own frustration first. The frustration might come from the hope that the employee would manage and then a disappointment that it is not the case. It is still the employee who decides whether to develop or not, and the first one to discover when it's not possible. The manager needs to respect that it is hard for an employee to realize that he or she is not good enough for a particular job. The employee has presumably applied for the job in the belief that he or she would be the right match. Or the company has changed direction and the employee is no longer a match. Our genetic heritage supplies each one of us with a series of emotional fields that decide our temper. With the brain circuit involved, the temper is extremely affectable. To have a temper is not a destiny. Good feedback can be supported with specific coaching questions that makes the person understand what has been said and gain the opportunity to translate it to new possibilities. For instance, what do you think about the feedback that I've given you? How do you feel now? What new opportunities do you see for yourself? What was most important to you? What was the most surprising? What will you do now? Feedback needs to be adjusted to the employee's profile. The manager must evaluate how high the expectations should be for the employee. If the manager's preferences and competences are the opposite of the employee's, then there is a chance that the manager is not fair in his or her feedback. It is easy to expect too much compared to the manager's own preferences, and sometimes too little. The manager's starting point must be the employee's preferences and what he or she can or cannot do. The starting point should not be the manager's preferences and competences. Feedback must be balanced so that the small steps taken in a non-preference are just as important as major steps taken in a preference. Negative feedback. If the feedback model is used incorrectly, the feedback can be perceived negatively and hinder greater performance and results. If the feedback is filled with convictions and judgments, it rarely gives opportunities for development. Convictions and judgments can, for instance, be: "You are not quick enough. You will probably never learn. I would never have done it that way. Can you not see that it is totally wrong? How can you believe that it will be successful for you? You're not listening. You're lazy. You don't do your best. Why did I believe in you? I knew that you could not do it. You just have to do it this way. It is wrong what you do." There are very few people who get energy from judgments and who afterwards are thinking, "I will show you that I can do it." You're going to eat your words. For the vast majority of people, negative feedback creates doubts about self-ability and/or frustration in relation to the person that gave the feedback. There's basis for a weak foundation. The weak foundation can also occur because the employee did not listen carefully when receiving feedback. For instance, only listens to the development areas or only to the strengths. Perhaps the employee misunderstands the development areas, so they become negative and are not developing. The more the manager is specific, detailed, and providing examples, the less the employee can misunderstand the feedback. If the feedback is followed by coaching questions, it gives an even greater chance that the feedback creates development and an even stronger foundation. Help the employees to give feedback to themselves. The employees need to learn how to give themselves the developing feedback. The manager can do that by asking questions based on the feedback frame. The first question is, "What did you do well?" And then, "What would you like to focus on in order to become even better?" It is necessary to keep on asking until the employee has found 3 specific areas where he or she is good at and 2 specific developing areas which the manager can support and follow up on. Ask for an overall positive phrase at the end. If the employee says that it all went bad, the question, "What went well?" need to be repeated again and again until the employee has found the essential positive areas. There are always 3 areas that are positive, but sometimes an employee is stuck with what went wrong. Finding these 3 areas ensures a strong foundation. If the employee does not want to talk about developing areas but is hoping that the manager perceives him or her as perfect, it is important to be stubborn on behalf of the employee. Everyone wants to be even better and everyone needs to prevent development from diminishing.